Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing all right.
Got a bowl full of candy waiting for trick-or-treaters tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've gotten a lot of kids coming to our area. We had loads of kids for years, and then they all grew up and moved away. And
Our,
as kids are likely to do.
yeah, I mean, our neighborhood's a little bit spread out, and of course, we've been empty nesters for years without the kids. But walking around, they see them all over the place. And last year we had a pickup. Normally we have leftover candy, and last year we almost ran out. So we have extras, which either mean the kids get them, or I'm going to be very fat by the weekend.
Yeah. So and there's all sorts of Halloween events all around the country, not just on Halloween, but going on all week, even into next weekend. So we wish our listeners a very happy Halloween.
It's a
And
very, very fun time of year. Obviously, when we were growing up, it was one of our favorite holidays, period, before all the different hype and things going on. So it's just awesome. I'm glad the kids are getting to enjoy it.
absolutely. And in fact, Halloween sort of goes into what we're talking about because we're talking about something that can be a little frightening. And we're hoping to remove some of that fear factor, but we're talking about burnout and mental illness and the stress that people are constantly under. And I looked up a couple of quick facts. Just with burnout, 52% of Americans report that they have been burnt out in the last year. 1 in 5 Americans have been diagnosed with a mental illness, and 1 in 20 adults have a serious mental illness. So these are some pretty scary numbers. And unfortunately, for some reason, people do not take mental illness and burnout and the dangers of stress as seriously as they should. And the fact of the matter is, you wouldn't dismiss somebody if they came down with cancer. You wouldn't dismiss somebody who was injured, physically injured. And yet people think nothing of dismissing mental illness. And they'll say, "Oh, just, push through it. You'll be fine." Well, these things are serious illnesses and they need to be treated that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the problem begins with ourselves too, because we don't want to admit to ourselves, we don't want to ask for help, and we keep it in and so on. And the longer that we do that and build up all these fears, which we manufacture ourselves, and with the outside world certainly not helping us as far as everything we're exposed to, it's so important to stay connected with other people and talk it up. And obviously, if people notice something with you and they're doing it out of care, it's something that you should do something about. But obviously, it's really, really tough to take that first step.
It is. And you mentioned staying connected with other people. In fact, two of the most serious things that are going on mentally with people are actually loneliness and the feeling of being isolated. And these can be symptoms of a larger problems, or they can actually cause larger problems. So, yes, it is so important to stay connected to people, even if it's just a quick phone call, a text. When you haven't heard from somebody, send them a message, give them a phone call, let them know you're thinking about them. That connection can go a long way. And yes, we need to get rid of the stigma when we're not feeling right. That, oh, I don't want to ask for help, or, uh, you know, I can do this on my own. If you broke your arm, you wouldn't ignore it. You would go to a doctor. Mental illness is an illness, and it needs to be treated as such. It's not a weakness. It's not something you did to yourself, and it's not a character flaw. It is something that is wrong that needs to be fixed. And most of us are not capable of fixing it without some sort of assistance. So we need to be able to reach out and get the help we need. But also, we need to start recognizing when we are under so much stress, when things don't feel right, to know that something is going on.
Yeah, obviously, fear is basically where it all starts. And fear starts in our head, false evidence appearing real. And if we leave that unchecked and we continue to think about that, that's really a recipe for developing mental illness and everything else you have. Obviously, a lot of people have some serious problems that go way beyond that, but there are things that a lot of us who are just feeling down from time to time and disconnected, lonely, isolated, and so on and so forth can do about it. And it's something that you have to work on yourself. I mean, we did a podcast, I don't know, several months ago or a year ago about fear. And one of the things we talked about was strategies for overcoming fear. And Jack Canfield had written an article about that. And it all starts, and this and happiness and everything else, it all starts with awareness. So you have to be aware of your thoughts and that you have fears and so on. Obviously, if you can choose to think more positively, that helps. But think about how you feel when you are feeling fear. You can feel yourself breaking down and so on and so forth. And a lot of what you can do is just go through an exercise to analyze yourself and just identify your fears. Sit down, start writing them all down on paper. Take a look at them and ask yourself, are these really, really real? And also think about positive things that are going on in your life. Write them down. And when you're looking at that negative list, repeat it and just cross things off one by one. And if you can start doing that on a daily basis or a weekly basis or whatever you want to do, however much you think you need it, the bottom line is the first question you should ask yourself, if it's false evidence appearing real, ask yourself, is this really real? Is this reality? Because reality is we all came from good. We all came from a maker who wanted us to have nothing but joy, even though we feel we're unworthy of it. But that's what reality is all about. And if you understand that and start believing and just having faith that that's the way things really are and exposing yourself to the evidence on that side of things, it's going to help you out a whole lot. So if you can take charge from a positive way by first identifying, being aware that things are wrong, writing them down, identifying what they are, and trying, once they're right in front of you, saying, okay, if they're in front of you, you can start eliminating them. If they're just constantly in your head and they never come out, you never write them down, it's a recipe for disaster.
That's very true. Writing them down, talking about them with somebody takes the power of the fears away. And something else that people need to do, there's a lot of folks that suffer from anxiety. And for those folks, the fears can be, quite real to them. But when you're identifying what you're afraid of, ask yourself, the last time you were anxious about this, the last time it caused an anxiety attack or you were really fearful about it, did it actually come true? Most of the things that we are anxious about only exist in our head. They don't actually happen. We're worried about what could happen, what might happen. Ask yourself if it's actually happened. Because when you're worrying about something that never happens, you're just putting more stress on yourself, and you tend to spiral because you get more and more nervous about it. You need to separate yourself. identify what it is you're worried about, what it is that you fear, and take an objective look as to whether or not this has happened. The tomorrow you were so worried about yesterday is today. Well, is today really that bad? Did any of those things you were so concerned about actually affect you? And when you start to analyze it that way, you can calm yourself down. I actually know people who get anxiety attacks every Monday because they've gotten themselves so worked up over going to work on Monday and it's the new week. What's going to happen? And they have these anxiety attacks on Mondays. And I keep asking them, well, what's different about Monday than Wednesday, than Friday? And they go, well, actually nothing. There's no difference in my daily routine. There's no difference in the work I'm doing. So what is it about Mondays that makes you so anxious? And they can't really explain it, but they've worked themselves up over so long that every Monday the anxiety occurs.
Yeah. So what needs to be done is certain tips as far as replacing fear is taking time out and doing other things. Obviously, this could include exercising, taking a walk, trying to sleep better, relaxing activities, spending time out in nature. Basically, it's just doing things to keep yourself distracted from that so that you're not just sitting there thinking about negative things in your head. So we talk a lot about mindfulness practice, meditation. I mean, there's guided things out there that you can download apps to do. And I know that you do this a lot as far as
Yes.
meditation at home and so on and so forth. And what's that's all about. We have 60,000 thoughts a day going through our head, and most of them are negative because that's just the kind of way we've been programmed for our whole lives. I mean, it's not something that it's just happened now and so on. This is the way humanity has always been since we met the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden and say, okay, we can figure things out, but if something goes wrong, then something's messed up. And it's just been history ever since then. And our parents have taught us that, who's been taught by their parents and so on and so forth. So it's really nobody's fault. You just got to understand the reality is that we are human, but we also, on the same side, have that inner self that we all came from without words, with only observance as a child. And we can get back to that again. And one of the ways to do that is to just turn everything off and get into a meditation practice and so on. Take deep breaths. Maybe look at things in front of you that are positive as far as pictures and things like that. But there's a lot of ways to do that. A lot easier said than done. But if you can block this out, we talk about routines all the time. If you start every day with a positive routine and include that, the last thing you do before you go to bed, have some type of a positive affirmation or meditation and so on and so forth, you will marinate in those thoughts rather than going to bed thinking about all the bad things that have happened today and all the fears that you're going to repeat tomorrow. So these are different tools that are available for you, and there's a whole lot out there. And I would recommend just getting out there, writing down a few of them, and starting to practice them on a daily basis. Just make a habit out of them.
Absolutely. And a lot of them, there are apps you can purchase, but there's also a lot of free stuff out there on YouTube that you can use. There are guided meditations. There's also something called binaural beats. And what these are tones at different frequencies. And they're put into music, they're put into different sounds. One of the ones that I use very often combines music and the sounds of rainstorms that I find very comforting. And these help you relax. And it is very important to relax before going to bed. You should not be watching television right before you go to sleep. You should be doing something almost mindless to really shut your mind down. Because if any of you have suffered from insomnia, and I had insomnia for years, one of the worst things is you go into bed and you're not sleeping. And your mind starts going, well, why aren't I sleeping? Why can't I sleep? And you become focused on not sleeping, and that just makes the problem worse and it spirals. So the more you can relax, some music that relaxes you, an audio book perhaps, if you have books that you find relaxing, a nice cup of tea if you find that relaxing, but something to calm you down. Don't just shut the lights out and expect to fall asleep. Shut the lights out half an hour before you're going to go to sleep. Turn the screen off on your phone so you're not seeing the light. Listen to some music. Close your eyes. A meditation is great. And again, the big problem most people have getting into meditation is that they have trouble clearing their mind. You don't have to be silent to meditate. Guided meditations will talk you through it. The binaural beats and the music, you can focus on that. So you're not really clearing your mind. And then when thoughts do come into your mind, just acknowledge them. Go, okay, I thought about that. Now I'm going to put that aside till tomorrow. And that relaxation over days and weeks help relieve the stress. Stress is actually the number one cause of people's mental problems, short of an actual diagnosable condition. So if you can relieve that stress, if you can connect with people so you don't feel isolated, and just as important, we're talking about self-care, but when you see somebody else that appears anxious, when someone else appears out of sorts, talk to them. Let them know you're there for them. Because sometimes it's harder for someone to reach out and get help than it is to accept help when it's offered.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about different things you can do for going to bed and sleeping and so on and so forth. With minds going a million miles a minute, I find that mantras, I mean, some people can call them prayer and this and that, whatever, but short mantras, breathing in and breathing out while you're taking a walk, while you're falling asleep and so on and so forth, instead of just thinking. If you start thinking these things, breathing in and breathing out all the time, like one of my favorites is breathing in, I breathe in love. And when I exhale, I breathe out peace. I inhale love, I breathe out peace. Try doing that for 10 minutes and just thinking about I breathe in love, unconditional, and I breathe out peace, calming and harmonious. Just do that for 10 minutes every day as a meditation, or while you're sitting, next time you're feeling wherever, just do that. If you don't want to just sit there breathing, saying, okay, I'm going to clean my mind out, all you're doing is thinking about clearing your mind out, and you're thinking twice as much. But if you have to trick you, which obviously, I'm exhibit A because I have a really, really hard time as far as keeping my mind at rest. But breathing in and breathing out with a simple mantra, and there's a lot, if you just go love, peace, love in, peace out, instead of lots of words, the simpler the better. But these positive thoughts to replace that is so, so important to do. So the other thing we talk about a lot is turning obstacles into opportunities. And when we did our fear segment, we had a How to Overcome Fear segment by Tony Robbins, the first of which is to identify your fears. But number 2, recognize that fear can work to your advantage. And he said, our emotions exist to tell us things. When you feel fear, your soul wants to tell you something. So listen. View the fear as a piece of information instead of a threat to your survival. When you use anxiety to your advantage, it can't ruin your life. In overcoming fear, it becomes your ally, a critical source of guidance to reach your full potential. And the next thing he says is that you find valuable insight in pain. No one likes pain. Most of us go to great lengths to avoid it, but pain can be a profound teacher. If you accept that your life and your efforts to achieve goals will be painful at times, and they will be, painful experiences become opportunity for growth. When you let go of pain as a threat to your survival, it loses its power and becomes another tool for your overcoming fear. So instead of letting fear of uncertainty due to your past experiences dictate your decisions, you can actively choose to learn from these painful moments and grab control of your own life. So it's a lot easier said than done, but now you are aware that that's an option for you. That if you can use this as your ally by recognizing it, really saying, again, is it real? Putting it in its true perspective, not being the end of all, but just there and something that you can overcome. It's powerful.
That's very true. And in fact, that's taught in numerous religions. I first came across it in Kabbalah, but the theory is that everything is happening for your benefit, whether it's uncomfortable or painful. And what your role in this is to look at that pain, to look at that discomfort and say, well, why is this happening? What am I supposed to be learning from this? What do I need to take from this? And it gives you that insight into what's going on. And again, most of us tend not to self-reflect. And that's a big mistake. You need to do that, to look at things objectively and say, well, why did I respond this way? Why does this hurt so much? And really think about it and see, what are you trying to take away from this? Something else, I just want to go back briefly to talking about getting to sleep. Most people severely underestimate the amount of sleep they need. Sleep is not just, downtime. Your body and mind need it to heal from all of the damage that's done to us during the day. So when you're sleeping, your mind or your brain is actually clearing out compounds that accumulate during the day. It's pushing away thoughts, it's processing things. And your body uses sleep to heal. So don't say, oh, I don't need sleep. I'll get more sleep tomorrow, or I only need an hour or two a night. No, most people need a minimum of 6 hours. And some people need as much as 8 to 9 hours. You need to understand how your body and mind work to be able to recover from all of the damage we're doing, both physically and mentally. So don't underestimate the power of sleep. And again, we're talking a lot about the results of stress, about burnout, but there are serious mental illnesses that people suffer from, depression. And there is a big difference between being down and being depressed. Most of us, I would say 95% of us, get down once in a while. We're not at our best. We don't, we're not cheerful. It's like we're a little upset. That's being down. Depression is something different. Depression can be physically painful. Depression can make you not want to get up. We talked about the importance of sleep, but if you're sleeping too much, if you never want to leave your bed, that can be a sign of serious depression. You need to be aware of what depression is, what anxiety is, and recognize when these might be affecting you. And again, these are serious mental illnesses. And the same way You wouldn't take you wouldn't come down with a major physical illness and just ignore the doctor and not do anything and expect to be okay. Mental illness works the same way. If you suspect that something is more than just a little anxious, or you're really feeling like you cannot handle the pressure, reach out, talk to a family member, talk to a close friend. And there are hotlines out there that you can call. um, I don't know if it's available everywhere, but I know many states have the number 211, and you can call 211 and get connected to somebody who is trained in mental illness and get help. You are your own best first line of defense. You know what's going on in your mind. And if you think something's wrong, if you think you can't absolutely handle something, or if you start having suicidal thoughts, which unfortunately are very common, and it's not just adults, children are reporting suicidal thoughts at an alarming rate. So if this starts happening to you, reach out. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It means you got sick, just as if you caught the flu, and you need to get help. So please reach out. So we're actually coming up on the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway today for our listeners?
Wow, we've covered a lot of things, but obviously want to finish this on a positive mindset finish here, because that's what I do, and that's what everybody has a choice of doing. And the bottom line is, number one, just awareness. It all starts there. I talked about writing things down, crossing off things, asking them yourself, is this really real? And weeding things out that way. Really, really important to come up with a routine to take a time out from exposure to all the negative stuff out there and work on yourself. And, we talked about different ways to do that. Nature, take a walk, that kind of thing. But it all comes down to the present moment. And if you can approach the present moment, I always talked about Lao Tzu, simplicity, patience, compassion, and just take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this really real? Be patient. I talked about mantras. Just breathe in slow, breathe out slow, love, peace, that kind of thing. And then compassion. And compassion means starting with that person in the mirror, yourself. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Start that, be the change you wish to see in yourself, and then carry that forward into your relationships out there. Reach out to other people and be your positive self, so that when other people are exposed to you, Mother Teresa says, when you come in touch with anybody, never leave anybody without them feeling better. That's the most important thing. If you can become that yourself, even if you are having problems below the surface, it's going to help them go away. And believe me, it's a minute to minute struggle. But if you can tip that, they say over 50% of the time to do that, you've changed your life. So you got to work on it moment to moment. And as Eric has said, and we both said, if it's really, really getting bad, reach out and get some help. And most importantly, just connect with other people and stay connected with other people, because we're all going through the same thing. And we're all built to help each other. That's why we're here.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think the big takeaway for me, also trying to put a positive spin on this, is the fact that as dark as this can feel when you're in the midst of it, whether it's just stress or if it's something more serious, you can get through it. There are stress management techniques you can do. There are groups that are specifically geared to help people avoid and recover from burnout. There's therapy that works. For more serious conditions, there's medication that works. But you can get through it, and it is brighter on the other side. So don't give up hope. There is always hope that you will recover from this as you're going through it. Take the steps to avoid it in the first place, reduce your stress, acknowledge when there's a problem, but know that you can come out of it on the other side better than when you went in. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.